Gulbara Nurmba Yuandu, Troy Grant. Nadu Banigu Gulbara, Radri Mayangalang Nurmba Nina Drinya Gaida. Good morning and congratulations to the Association, organisers of this 81st National Conference. What a wonderful and historic backdrop you've chosen in Griffith to host this event. As Griffith heads into its own 110th anniversary in 2016, established and built largely on the success of water being channelled into this area as its lifeblood. This city and surrounding region is a testament to the criticality of water for its people, its environment, its agriculture and its economic success, then, now and well into the future. For me, I value the chance to be back in this region. Areas like Griffith have proven to be a critical part of my work insofar as truth sourcing, on the ground, how communities feel about the importance of water, its management across the Murray-Darling Basin, and it gives me the ability to speak with people face to face from regions on their turf. It's priceless and it's something I do not take for granted. Whether it's me, my team members who report back to me of field officers or other members and subject matter experts from my team, meeting with communities throughout the basin, what we hear from your communities and what your communities are telling us matters. It's probably the most important thing we do. The Basin Plan has many moving parts that affect many communities in many different ways. Regulators and operators are doing their best in a very complex, highly regulated, multi-tiered operating environment to deliver for those many commitments that they're obliged to undertake. The many projects they're challenged with and the outcomes that support the Basin Plan. While many of those agencies are improving their reporting on the outcomes of those various bodies of work and reporting back to their various governments, the real homework markers are those on the ground. Those whose lives, businesses, environment and overall success rely almost exclusively on that work being done lawfully, done properly, transparently, done in a timely manner, to deliver a positive impact and effect on the communities the plan is intended to support. In August 2025, it signalled the end of my first term as Inspector General. It also marked the beginning of my second and last 4 years in the role, as the maximum appointment for this role can only be 8 years. I have a clear objective in my remaining time in this second and final tenure to achieve. My vision for this role is to leave the legacy that I wish to put in place, being having a measurable positive impact in the improvement of the management and outcomes of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. And I'll come back to that shortly. For consecutive years since we were established in 2021, I have engaged research into community sentiment across the basin, carried out in many of your local government areas with your community members. One glaring aspect of the overall research findings among the community is the low-level foundational knowledge regarding the basin itself. Specifically, a sizable proportion of people who live in the basin communities are either unaware of what the basin is or unaware they live in the basin. Around 72%, based on the most recent research, are unaware that they live in the Murray-Darling Basin. Of equal interest or potential concern is around 25% of water licence holders surveyed were unaware they lived and operated in the basin. And the guy charged with improving trust and confidence in the Basin Plan itself, these are statistics I take seriously. But community sentiment in regard to supporting the Basin Plan is improving, with 58% of the surveyed community in support, while 24% were neutral and 17% were not supportive. The last survey period showed that only 41% of the community supported the plan, while 39% were neutral and 20% were supportive. Running parallel to this, water licence holders are more polarised, almost balanced at either end of those statistics, with those who once sat in the neutral zone having a firmer position. In 2023, the survey recorded 27% of water licence holders supported the Basin Plan, while 38% remained neutral and 35% did not support the plan. Compared to the 2024 survey results, which found 43% of water licence holders supported the Basin Plan, with 18% remaining neutral and 40% not supporting the plan. For context, the 2023 survey was undertaken amid the legislative reform to the Water Amendment Restoring Our Rivers Act of 2023. That picture, I hope, paints a bit of a picture about how hard it is to move the needle in relation to sentiment and how big the impact has to be to change that sentiment. Two observations I make based on this snapshot of research from initially starting our surveys until now are the results of which are available all on our website for you to look at, igwc.gov.au. Is one, traditionally there has been a focus on the negatives across the basin, the things that don't work, things being done wrong, poor enforcement, lack of consequences. Those things, for as long as the plan has been in effect and been burnt, have dominated headlines and conversations. No real surprise there. It's also dominated the influence on people's opinions. On the flip side, we should never neglect to acknowledge and point out there have been positives for the Basin Plan, insofar as work being done basin-wide. This includes work by regulators and agencies. There have been improvements in water management, works and projects to improve environmental outcomes, water quality and access and enforcement, including penalties for those breaking the law. Time and effort must be spent to share these outcomes so those who really matter, being your communities, are hearing and seeing for themselves the successes, positive change and improvements that are being achieved. There is, however, a need for greater uplift in the basin knowledge among your communities. Those within the basin, including LGAs, need to know and be reminded that they live, work and contribute to the success of our national food bowl. They need to know it, they need to own it. Those communities, like here in Griffith and surrounding Murrumbidgee irrigation area, are as critical to the success of the Basin Plan as are the agencies and the entities working to produce positive outcomes for the plans and the regions across the basin. Our office is a recognised integrity agency within the Commonwealth, and I, as an independent statutory officer, report on the outcomes of my work to the Parliament through publishing my findings, my in-person evidence during Senate estimates hearing, the next one on Tuesday, and through provisions I have to provide recommendations directly and independently to the Minister. So when I say truth sourcing from your community is critical, what I see, what I listen to and what I hear from your communities forms the significant part of my evidence base. So when you as mayors, general managers, elected officials, ratepayers of an LGA raise concerns with me in the areas I can assist with and have scope and powers to look at, or provide evidence that compels me to act on your behalf, know this, I am in your corner. There are many councils among you who are already working on or have in place already policies, procedures and plans for the next drought. Some of the councils in the Southern Basin and into South Australia are living through an extended period of dry conditions as we speak and sit here. I was able to recently travel through some of those affected areas of the country, spanning multiple LGAs across Victoria, New South Wales and South Australia, as part of my first-hand fact-finding trip during the end of June of this year. And conversely, there are areas in other parts of our basin, central and northern, that are affected by heavier than average rainfalls and runoff flooding into catchments across numerous valleys. For our part, before, during and after droughts, the Inspector General's functions under Section 215C of the Water Act broadly entail: firstly, the monitoring and overseeing of the performance of certain functions and exercise of certain powers by agencies of the Commonwealth under the Act and the Basin Plan. Monitoring and overseeing relevant Commonwealth and Basin State Governments agencies' performance in the management of basin water resources. Enforcing compliance with certain Commonwealth laws that regulate the management of basin water resources and the provision of water market information. And finally, engaging with the Australian community on the management of those basin water resources. So like most of you who are planning for and anticipating a return of extreme dry conditions at some point, we too are ready for any work we undertake specific to drought. What we want to see is a working environment where outcomes of our work ensure that the Inspector General is not required to investigate or review matters during the crisis of drought, because the inevitable question often repeatedly asked, where did all the water go? Or how was it allowed to get to this situation so badly? When that happens, the overall sentiment from community through public commentary usually moves towards the feeling and belief that there is a failure of those responsible to ensure the protection and adequate planning of the critical water needs for your communities. There is general low to no appetite for lawmakers to make reform or legislative changes for water when systems are charged and flooding leads the headlines. Equally, there's always the perennial challenge faced by governments of all persuasions when managing the worst of drought: what to do and when. And as often the case in drought and amid critical human needs being directly affected, governments react and try to bring about legislative reform, a response that has already been shown, particularly in the last significant drought, to be too little, too late for that particular crisis at the time it was most critically needed. So as of today, I've got 1,404 days left in my second and final tenure. There's roughly 281 weeks remaining for me to work hard at leaving a meaningful and enduring legacy, as I said, to have a measurable impact in the improvement of the management and outcomes of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. I acknowledge I am limited in what I can directly do for local government insofar as your immediate water infrastructure, water quality and water user needs. However, I am an independent statutory officer that heads a Commonwealth Integrity Agency. I rely on your communities to be an on-ground source of truth and intelligence insofar as issues and observations regarding water and water management that affect them, how it affects them, and what support and advice they are getting from those responsible for water management in their catchments. I rely on you as community leaders, council general managers and elected officials to do the same on behalf of your communities. We need to hear from you. And I am acutely aware of the critical need for water as the lifeblood and key to economic and overall success of your communities, just like here in Griffith and across the MIA. In the coming months, you will see the outcome of just how that partnership with community can lead to the use of my powers to seek answers, in particular my power of inquiry. I will soon release the outcomes and recommendations of my inquiry into the Northern Basin Toolkit that I initiated almost 12 months ago to the day and spoke to you about at the last conference. For those unfamiliar with the body of work that I've undertaken, the Northern Basin Toolkit was a significant government program aimed at improving the health of the Murray-Darling Basin, with the Australian government allocating up to $163.7 million for the implementation of toolkit measures. The community, along with the Productivity Commission, have told me prior for some time they think there has been little substantive progress in the last 6 years on implementing several of the toolkit measures, particularly those involving critical infrastructure works, something the community in those areas continuously pointed to as an area of interest from the outset of my first term. I'm sure you remember the 2019 fish death events in the lower Darling amid the height of the drought. One of the recommendations from an independent review of those events was that the respective governments should set an aggressive timeline for the delivery of toolkit measures. That recommendation was put to the Australian government in early 2019. The original deadline of the completion for the toolkit implementation was June 2024. In August of 23, this deadline was extended to the 31st of December this year, 2026. Next year, 2026. I'm looking at if there are significant issues delaying or preventing the implementation of some toolkit measures, and I'm looking at how to make sure there is accountability for implementing the remainder of this program. The integrity of the basin's water resources management is paramount. My intention through this inquiry has been to provide a transparent and thorough examination of the status of the implementation of the toolkit. My commitment to the community in response to their concerns is to have a measurable positive impact in the improvement of the management and outcomes of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. Delegates and guests, I wish you all the very best for a successful conference here in Griffith. There is much to discuss, share and learn from events like these. I look forward to taking any of your questions now or on the panel. Thank you for having me.